Dragon Force through the fire and the flames. Oh, what a throwback that was to the old Guitar Hero games way back when. And I am back here with Tom Burmeister. So, Tom, how are your fingers feeling after that? We were both air guitaring off air at this one because that is a real throwback for us.
Brutal.
Yeah, definitely brutal. It was designed for that. I mean, the whole thing about, if anyone was actually ironing at the time, I really hope they weren't trying to iron as quick as they were with that, or getting everything ready for dinner, or cleaning around the house. I mean, or even in the shower. Can you imagine trying to lather your hair whilst doing that? You'd be bald by the end of the song. It'd be absolutely nuts. But yeah, we are back talking about one of the creations you made here at PlayFrame, which is called Biosphere Guardians, which apparently the background picture you have, that's actually one of the areas you went to actually get some inspiration for this whole thing. But let's start with brass tacks. What exactly is Biosphere Guardians? What's the setting? What's the idea?
Okay, so Biosphere Guardians actually is a beyond what the game is. But the actual project is a project that is actually an international role-playing youth exchange. So we've got funding from Erasmus and from TIFE here in Wales to basically get young people collaborating online and trying to imagine, as part of a tabletop role-playing game, so like D&D, but trying to imagine a setting that is what I was framing an optimistic carbon negative future. So it's trying to imagine a world where, we've managed to fix climate change, that maybe things aren't quite as bad as they could possibly be, and we're trying to be optimistic about that. And why we use the word carbon negative is because the idea is that we're actually trying to the setting is about drawing carbon out of the atmosphere and locking it into the natural systems of life. So a big part of the game is the idea that massive parts of the planet have been rewilded so that they are these almost like big nature reserves that are almost so wild that they kind of need exploring again. So that means that you've got that sense of the unknown, that sense of adventure with our player base, but then also they are guardians, so their job is to protect and balance the kind of ecosystems within those areas, and also protect them from malign actors that might exist out there in the world. So we have a series of potential factions in the game that people can have interacting with their biospheres that they create as part of the game, or they use the pre-setting biospheres that we've created based around the 4 partners that were part of the project, the International Exchange. So that was Wales, and then it was Trento in northern Italy, and Kempten in southern Germany, and Sligo in West Ireland. And so those 4 locations have like their own version of an imagined carbon negative zone. And then we've also got in these books a pre-written adventure for each of those locations as well. So our one in Wales, for example, is set in the National Museum in Cardiff. But then we have this idea that Cardiff itself has become a bit of a wetland because the barrage failed for some reason, and most of it, like a big percentage of the city, is underwater. And so, but then people are still living there, and there's all kinds of it's a strange kind of futuristic setting, but then the old museum, the National Museum, has been turned into this biosphere base, and the great thing is we actually got to do a play test in the museum with young people who are interested in the project, or part of the project as well, to try and imagine it as this biosphere base in the future. I won't spoil what happens in the adventure. You can read it yourself, or you can play it yourself. Maybe get one person to be a GM, read it through, and they'll play it with some of the other players. And you can do that very easily because it's all free. My product is always free online for anyone to download. You just need to go to itch.io and Google
I think
Biosphere
we've added
Guardians.
it to the message. So anyone's looking in the descriptions of this video, if you're watching it now or later, if you head to that, you can actually find it on there to see what's going on. Talk about Cardiff, actually, with the whole set. It seems to be a sound of Captain Planet combined with Horizon Zero Dawn. And I actually remember when they promoted Horizon Zero Dawn, when I went to EGX in 2000, and I think it was 15 or 14, it was one of the last ones in London at Oscorp. They had all these posters promoting Horizon Zero Dawn with different areas of the UK set in that kind of style, and one of them was Cardiff.
Really?
In fact, where Aloy's sitting in this poster is about 20 meters from where I proposed to my fiance, which is right next to the Principality Stadium. So, yeah, it's not the first one it's done, but that sounds amazing.
That's an amazing piece of key art that I would like to find. I would like to see that.
I will send it to you. I have got it on my
Yeah.
person, so I will send that after the thing. But,
Horizon Zero Dawn was definitely an inspiration for this game. We called it out in the there's a bit in the back of the book where we explain all the different things that have inspired us, from mechanics of the game, but the setting of the game, including books like Kim Stanley Robinson's Ministry for the Future, which tries to imagine us solving climate change without what I wanted to do, and what was important to me and Barney Dickers, who's my collaborator in Germany, who I worked on a previous project called Trickster's Net. We wanted to try and imagine this thing, but without it being pure post-apocalyptic. We didn't want the world necessarily to end. Like, maybe things changed. We solved it without the massive collapse that everyone seems to think. Our young people weren't necessarily quite on board with that, and I think we've got somewhere in between that, because I think they genuinely struggled to imagine, like, how could the political will come around to do this. But this is why we just try to imagine the solution rather than necessarily all the little steps to get there.
Absolutely, because it's very much what they call, I think it's called solar punk, because you have your cyberpunk, your diesel punks, but solar punk's it's getting more popular. I've seen a lot more of it, and of course Horizon was one of the big factors for that, but we've also seen it with a number of books coming out. C.M. Alonjai's recent novels have had some touches on that with Citadel and some other bits as well. It is great to see, and I love the inspiration behind it all to get that all out there, and of course it is accessible. So as I mentioned, if you go to our descriptions, you can find the itch.io to have a go, and it's look at the rule books. It is very easy to get into, of course. You have the input from a lot of young people around those countries as well, so it's designed for that age group along with adults like you and me, so it's very easy to pick up, which I really do appreciate.
Our age range was 16 to 25 of engagement in the project, and then they got to meet weekly online and hash out rules, decisions, and run their own adventures, play in other people's adventures, produce pieces of small short fiction and artwork around the game and the setting. And we've tried to include all of those things into the final book, and they're all named front page as co-creators. All these young people, Brilliant. They have been the co-creators of this, and for them, that's also their first step on, like, hopefully a creative journey of being a game designer or a TTRPG designer or a writer or even a professional GM or something like that. There's lots of different directions you could go to, but we're trying to give someone that stepping stone of, like, this is a great project they were part of, and this is a published book that exists out there that they can say that they were a co-author of. Yeah.
That's brilliant, because, Tom, thank you so much for all this information, because, again, based in Cardiff, we don't get many companies here. I mean, there's Wales Interactive, of course, who went very famous with Scare Rituals, Scare Online, with a couple other games as well. There's Wales in Gaming, which I've interviewed here. They're actually based in Texas now, but they talk about all these games or companies based here in Wales, but they need to add you onto the list if they haven't done so already, because it is great to see.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that there is a little bit of a moat maybe between the kind of charity, public sector funded kind of world that I'm in versus the kind of straight up game dev world. We sometimes fall between two stools a little bit like that. And tabletop gaming, though, in Wales is much bigger than maybe people think it is. There's not just me. There's obviously Firestorm Games and Duke Games. There's lots of great stores, but there's also smaller RPG development houses as well, like Fumble Folks based here in Cardiff. In fact, Bree Scott Jones was the graphic designer for our final book as well, and she runs Tabletop Emporium here in Cardiff, and they've got their own publishing house, Fumble Folks, that do D&D 5e adventures. There's also Adderstone Games, who I've been working with, and they've done I've got a huge book of theirs actually here, which is a 5e compatible book about Welsh mythology. When I say 5e, when I use 5e compatible, what I mean is compatible with Dungeons and Dragons, basically. And he's done lots of great stuff. And we were also working with Uncarai to get Welsh translation for Biosphere Guardians as well. So we're going to have a small, quick start in Uncarai, and we'll also have. I've also done some previous work of, like, getting Trickster's Net translated into Welsh, and we did Dwellings and Dragons, which is also completely translated into Welsh, which is a series of role-playing games based around the museum buildings in St Fagans. So,
I still haven't gone there somehow, which has caused many shock amongst my colleagues. How on earth have you never been there, Stu? So it is on my list to do at some point.
Yeah, well, there's an adventure you can do based around the Roman roundhouses that are there, and the fact that they were in Anglesey, so it was set in the era, the time of where that building was, actually before it was brought to St Fagans. And you can actually play both sides. You can play the Celts who are being invaded by the Romans, or you can then play the Romans invading, and you've got to either save or destroy the sacred groves. But we got those translated into Welsh, and yeah, and there's not a lot of examples of Welsh language TTRPGs that we've been able to find, so it is quite pioneering, it feels, in actually developing this stuff. But yeah, it's a great thriving industry, and there's a real homegrown cottage nature to the tabletop angle.
So everyone loves a bit of cottagecore, especially in gaming at the moment. So definitely so. Yeah, Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, and it's nice to actually see you again for 13 years. I mean, the last question I have is, where's the poncho?
Yes, I was in fact Poncho Tom at Aberystwyth University Students' Union back in 2011, was it?
Living above the Liberal Demoflat, as it was called. When
I did happen to live above the Liberal Demoflat, and it was bunk gate as well, which means that all the they put a load of people in bunk beds because there was a huge oversubscription. It was a very hard year. I passed the poncho on to the next student support officer when I left.
So it's become a relic of Aberystwyth now. So
apparently it has. It got passed down at least a few generations to the next few student support officers, which I'm very proud to have done. It's an incredibly hard job actually supporting your students with a variety of social issues. But yeah, I hope the poncho warmed a few hearts and they got through their hard time there. But yeah, I still try to visit Aberystwyth regularly. I think we're planning to go this year with our new 1-year-old son and show him the seas and the prom.
Don't forget, you can check any time you like, but you can never leave ABBA. It will. It always has a piece of you.
It exists in your heart forever, absolutely. Well, hopefully we'll meet again at a Madrigal's reunion, Stuart.
Fingers crossed, because I might be stateside by next year, so we will wait and see. So there may be a chance, but it'd be nice actually again in Falabalam once, as we used to do way back when.
Oh, yes.
Yes, Tom, thank you very much indeed. So we're going to dive into one more song now with The Days from Crystal, and then we'll be back with a bit more gaming news after the news and the weather, just after 4 o'clock. So, Tom, thank you so much. Just one last thing. Where can we find you for PlayFrame and all the rest?
Okay, so if you go to Blue Sky, you can find me by just searching playframe.co.uk. I'm self-hosting on there. I also have a little personal account called Ludicrous Pedagogy, which you can find through the PlayFrame one. What I would encourage everyone to do is to Google Biosphere Guardians 2050 and look for the itch.io link, and on there you can download a PDF of that game completely for free, including the character sheets and everything you need to play the game. All you need is like 1 or 2 D6s and some pencils, and you can have a go yourself at our wonderful game. That would be wonderful if people would do that. But follow me on Blue Sky, or you can go to my website www.playframe.co.uk.
Absolutely fantastic. Well, Tom, thank you very much. I'm going to dive into that music right now. We'll be back after the news and the weather here on Pure West Radio for Pembrokeshire, from Pembrokeshire.
Are you in need of a local friendly optician?